Thank you so much for joining us today. Stick around for my interview with President of Kaplan Strategies, Doug Kaplan. We had a long-ranging conversation about polling, the news, and a lot more, so you don't want to miss that. So this is the cover of Time magazine. It just came out yesterday. As you can see, it's the Resolute desk with the presidential seal on it. Very nice. American flag, very good in the background. Presidential banner behind that one, or behind the Resolute desk, excuse me. But wait, who's that in the middle? Can we zoom in a little bit? Huh. Oh, well, there you go. It's Elon Musk sitting in that desk. That doesn't sound right. What's he doing there? When asked about this cover, Donald Trump's response was pretty quick and crisp. Take a look.
Magazine still in business? I didn't even know that.
Now, how do I know Trump's got hidden feelings right now? It's because Donald Trump is very, very fond of this whole spectacle of the Time magazine cover. He understands, like he's a salesman, he knows. It's like a PR thing. Like you want to be on the cover of Time magazine. It's like an ego boost. And as someone who's been on it a few times, I'm sure he would understand. And like, I get it. I too, if I was on the cover of Time magazine, I'd love it, and I'd love to show it off to everybody. But here's a truth from Donald Trump in December, how it started versus how it's going. Of course, the first one on the left is his mugshot, and the second one was from when he was on the cover of Time magazine because he was selected as Time's Person of the Year. So Donald Trump can say that he doesn't, he's like, is Time magazine still in business? They're very much in business, and they're making those covers, and you sure seem to love them too. But there's got to be a reason that the first cover that Time posts in this presidency is not Donald Trump, or not something related to the concept of Donald Trump. Like, it features Elon Musk. That's interesting, but it makes sense. It makes sense. Elon's been doing a lot. If you haven't heard, he's been a hard worker, and he's been, he's been doing a lot. It doesn't matter how you feel about what he's doing, but he is definitely achieving a lot of what he wanted to do. Quick update for the people that don't know what I'm talking about. Have you heard of DOGE? Have you heard of DOGE? Not like Dogecoin, no. But that's also something Elon was obsessed with. No, Department of Government Efficiency. That's something that Donald Trump created on his first day in his second term. And basically, DOGE is like this task force that's supposed to eliminate waste in the federal government. They're supposed to get rid of inefficiencies. Of course, we have people in the federal government that actually do that, like inspectors general, which Trump fired a few days ago, so I guess maybe we do need something like that. I don't know. But this task force is tasked with getting rid of the inefficiencies in our federal government. So what are some of the things that DOGE and Elon Musk have been doing? Well, accessing Treasury Department data. Yeah, I went right into it. So DOGE has gained access to sensitive Treasury Department data after a standoff with the highest ranking civil servant in the Treasury Department. After the standoff, because they would not give access to this payment system whose job is to just write the checks. Like, their job is to just write the checks and do what they're told. Elon Musk wants to gain access to that, and they make about 90% of the US federal government's payments. That's about $5 trillion worth. So Elon Musk has access to that. And that includes a lot of personal data of Americans, including social security numbers, access to the payment systems for Medicare and Medicaid, among so many other things. Basically what the federal government does, Elon Musk now has access to that. And there were concerns about the potential misuse, or like not even the misuse, but just like the fact that he even has access to this type of information. Like, what gave him that access? Like, what was his designation? What was his role? Trump administration cleared that up for us, don't worry. They decided to designate Elon Musk as a special government employee. And so what that means is that he only will work 120 days in the year, and he can be compensated fully for it, but he doesn't have to be fully transparent like a normal government employee would. Like, he doesn't have to share a lot of information that might be personal to him, financial-ish things. Like, he doesn't have to share any of that. or not as much anyway, that a normal federal government employee would have to. Okay, but he still gets the pass. He still gets the pass in the White House to roam around, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, back to the Treasury Department. They have access to this information, which I will tell you right now is a lot of personal data. And you know who would love access to personal data? Americans' personal data? Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. They would love to have access to this type of data, and they would saw off an arm to get access to it. And Elon Musk now has that data, has access to all that data. He doesn't have access to move anything around, but he does have access to read it all. He can access and read it all. This is the same Elon Musk who can't get a security clearance in his own company for projects with the government because he won't reveal his interactions, contact, and relations with foreign nationals like, I don't know, Vladimir Putin. So this Elon Musk, who can't get a security clearance in his own company, does have access to 90% of the US government's payment system. Way to go. Here's another thing that DOGE has been doing, dismantling USAID. We talked about this in last episode. We talked about USAID and their mission and what they do, but that there's this crusade against USAID, and they can't shut down the agency, but they are trying to lay off a lot of people. They're trying to cut down the workforce, because if you cut down the workforce and no one's working, then what's USAID doing, you know? But a federal court has temporarily blocked the layoffs of 2,200 USAID employees, so that's kind of a wrench in what they were trying to do. But here's a picture of USAID's sign getting covered with black tape outside its headquarters. And here's them trying to chisel off the name off the building. Get rid of USAID. Like, you can't eliminate it formally, but you might as well physically just get rid of the whole institution. Then there's Head Start. Head Start is this program for low-income kids, okay? Like, tell me why you'd be opposed to it. It's a program that's supposed to give low-income kids access to preschool and early childhood education services. Literally giving kids preschool. And preschool, I don't have to cite all the studies. It's very well known. Preschool is so important for building a child's development, their social skills, and so much more. It starts in preschool. And Head Start was a program that gave kids, low-income kids, access to this early childhood education. DOGE's interference with Treasury systems has caused delays in reimbursements for Head Start programs. Now, this administration has said that they weren't interfering, they weren't tampering with any of it, but there are reports that many Head Start centers have been forced to close or lay off staff due to funding issues because they can't get the funding, so they can't pay the people to do the job of helping low-income preschoolers. Like, they can't do that. Here's another thing. Feeding AI with data. This is an interesting one. So the DOGE team has been feeding AI systems with data they are obtaining. And why would they do that? What is the wisdom? In their infinite wisdom, what is the point of doing something like that? Basically, it's so they can target their cuts. If they put in all the data into AI, stuff that you and I will never be able to see, but if AI can see it, they can target the cuts that they want to make. Here's another thing that they're doing. So they are now tasked with defending America's skies and fixing our aviation systems after the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, entrusted DOGE and Elon's band of computer science interns to fix this aviation system following the third fatal plane crash in this country in 10 days. You know, normally we wouldn't talk about plane crashes this much in this country, but you know, after 3 in 10 days under this new administration, people have been reporting on it. And maybe it's also, you know, there's also the report that the FAA administrator was let go, which, by the way, Elon Musk actually was very instrumental in making happen. So I mentioned them, Elon's band of nerds. Like, it's worth knowing these people because Elon Musk is like, he gets to take the credit for what's going on, but he can't do it alone, and no person will be successful without their team. So we should talk about the team. So this team, the DOGE staff, consists of young engineers and computer science people who are aged 19 to mid-20s, so not a lot of age range there, and it's not very old either. And they have little government experience, which I don't know if it's worth even noting that since they're so young. Like, I don't know how much government experience you could have at such a young age. But yeah, they're smart. They're pretty smart people. They're from schools like UC Berkeley and Northeastern. Like, they have the brains. It's just, even with that intelligence, like, I'm sure they're smart in computers and stuff, but like, I don't know if giving a 20-something-year-old access to U.S. Treasury Department's sensitive data and classified information is necessarily the most responsible thing. Donald Trump doesn't think so, but I don't know. I just feel like, but I shouldn't just assume only on their age. I shouldn't just do that, right? Okay, fine, let's look at some stories. Let's look at some stories that we're learning about some of these kids. Like this one, who's basically the same age as me. He was fired from a cybersecurity internship for leaking company information. So this guy who's on a team that I'm sure is getting access to this classified US government data, he was fired from a cybersecurity internship for leaking that company's data. He now has access to this kind of sensitive information. Is there like a pattern that maybe employers would want to know about? To my friends in college right now who want cybersecurity internships, because I know there's some of you out there. Don't leak sensitive company data. Don't do it. Here's another one. This is Marco Ellis. He is a 25-year-old engineer who recently had to resign from DOGE after racist comments, racist social media posts were resurfaced. On his Twitter account, Mr. Ellis posted tweets that included quotes such as, quote, "Just for the record, I was racist before it was cool." Here's another one. Quote, "Normalize Indian hate." Hate against Indian people. I mean, we'll talk about what Elon and the administration have done in relation to this, but it's just problematic. Like, it's problematic when you have someone posting who has posted. I mean, it was a private account. It was in like a public one that he like said was mine, but still, like, this is just, these are values. These are things you post. These are comments like this are not comments you just post willy-nilly fun-de-da. You post it because you mean it. It's context you should know about. Normalize Indian hate. Elon Musk defended Ellis. He conducted a Twitter poll on whether to rehire this guy, stating, "To err is human, to forgive divine." To err is human, to forgive divine. Forgive what? Like the racism? Like the open, disgusting racism that was on that account? Like, is that what we have to forgive? But not to be outdone, J.D. Vance, Vice President J.D. Vance, also felt the need to chime in. He stated, quote, "I obviously disagree with some of Ellis's posts, but I don't think stupid social media activity should ruin a kid's life." You know, Vice President Vance really loves to use that word obviously. He loves using it. Like, when asked if violent insurrectionists should be pardoned, he said, obviously they shouldn't. Of course, just a few days later, they were. So clearly, Vice President Vance's use of the word obviously can be viewed in a different range, but he loves using that word, I should point out. And you thought Travis Kelce praising Donald Trump, who insulted his girlfriend, was bad. This week, J.D. Vance's wife is literally Indian. Like J.D., Mr. Vice President Vance, I don't know what the rationale is. Stupid activity on social media. I don't know if calling for hate against a certain group of people is stupid. I think it's wrong and it's inappropriate. It is horrific. And this guy that tweeted these types of things now has access to sensitive government data. Do you know what the course of the story is? He got rehired. He was fired and then rehired. That is what is going on in DOGE. And you know, it's hard. It's hard when you see these types of stories. You think it's hard to, it's hard to like feel like you can do much. But there are people across the country that are actually outraged about what is going on. Like, people are against what is going on. They are calling out some of the quite frankly, stupidity in the policies that are being posted. Because clearly they don't know sometimes what they're doing. And when they do it, it doesn't take a lot of work to push back. This week, there were protests across the country, in cities across the country, against Elon Musk's takeover of the federal government via DOGE, and demonstrators have voiced their concerns about the cost cuts for USAID, for the Department of Education that they're trying to close, which we'll talk about in just a second, for the Treasury Department, for Head Start, for all of what they're doing. Like, there are protests. Here's some pictures of it. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, large crowds gathered to protest Musk's influence. Lansing, Michigan, hundreds braved freezing temperatures to voice their opposition. Austin, Texas, demonstrators marched through the city center highlighting their concerns. Atlanta, Georgia, protesters gathered in Centennial Olympic Park before marching to the state capitol. Madison, Wisconsin, where I am, demonstrations took place at the state capitol with participants expressing their discontent. Columbus, Ohio, protesters rallied outside the state house, emphasizing the need to resist DOGE's actions. Washington, D.C., federal workers and supporters protested outside the Office of Personnel Management's headquarters. So people are protesting. And then here's another example. Democratic lawmakers went outside the Department of Education, which DOGE is trying to close now. Donald Trump signed an executive order tasking the new Secretary of Education, whenever she comes in, to work on ways to start dismantling the Department of Education. Democratic lawmakers went outside the doors of the Department of Education to protest this, but they weren't let in. They wanted to go inside. They were blocked by a DOGE staffer, actually, who didn't let them go inside. Here's a video of that.
All right now. Okay. We're coming in. We're coming in. We're coming in. Don't block the door. We're coming in. Who are you?
You're not coming in.
Who are you?
Who under whose
Who are
orders?
you? Who are you?
Who are you, sir?
Do you have business here?
Yes. I've sent the assistant secretary a letter alerting her that we would be here today, and we've asked her for a meeting.
Yeah, I don't know that that's been accepted, so until that's accepted,
Who are you? And what do you do here?
What do you do here?
But they were outside. They were protesting outside the building. They were trying to get in. Then, and the courts. Federal judges are blocking some of DOGE's actions, including, like I mentioned earlier, the layoffs of roughly 2,200 USAID employees. There's the federal government buyout that I told you about, where the federal government, Elon Musk wrote this email, they're calling it the fork in the road, wrote this email to 2 million government employees offering them this buyout, 8-month severance if they quit. Deadline for that was a few days ago. They were expecting 200,000 people to quit, only 40,000 left. People don't know if it's reliable or not. They don't know, like, if the government shut down and they took that severance package, they wouldn't get paid. Like, there were people with legitimate financial concerns, like wondering if this was really worth it. Federal judge blocked that. They said it's not happening. Don't even think about it. So as much as there is chaos coming out of this White House, coming out of DOGE specifically, you have to think about what they're doing. And obviously Donald Trump is president, and so he gets to decide. He gets to decide who works in his White House. He gets to decide what they do. But that doesn't stop us on the other side of the decisions to speak up when they affect us, to say, hey, this you can't do that. Stop it. Stop it. My interview with Doug Kaplan is next, so stick around for that. Thanks for joining us. So the story of American politics for a long time now has been about the confusing world of polling. Uh, we've seen it time and again in the 2022 midterms and in the 2024 election. The polling industry has been complicated with a few errors here and there. But my guest for today's episode is the president of Kaplan Strategies, which prides itself on having the most accurate prediction of the 2024 election, predicting that Donald Trump would win that popular vote by 1%. So joining me today to talk about data and politics, polling, the headlines, and so much more, I'm joined by President of Kaplan Strategies, Doug Kaplan. Mr. Kaplan, thank you for joining us. So before we get into the interview, why don't you take a few moments to introduce yourself to my audience?
Yeah, my name is Doug Kaplan. I'm president of Kaplan Strategies.com. We're a national political consulting and polling firm. We also release publicly released data, like we did on the national poll that you were talking about, where it had Trump winning by 1%. We originally had Harris up by 4 after her convention. So there was a 5-point swing from then until October 31st when we had Trump winning by 1, and he won the popular vote by 1%.
Very interesting. I want to look into that actually a little bit. Well, first I want to introduce my viewers and listeners to a bit behind the scenes in the polling industry. Like, we see all these polls coming in closer to election time from all the firms, including yours. But I was just curious to know, like, what does your job look like in this industry? Like, what is it that you actually do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, let's say you're releasing the public poll we talked about. You want to write the questions, which is actually the longest part of the process. You want to get that right. And then you're going to take a random sample of Americans, and you're going to contact them. A certain percentage will reply, take the poll. Statistician will weight the poll based on our turnout model. And then you do a write-up, and then you release it. So it's about a 4 or 5 step process.
Okay. And I guess, and like I said, we gave the 2 most recent examples, 2022, 2024. But as you know, and I'm sure you're familiar with, polling has definitely not been the best in our politics for a while. So, but your poll did pretty well, I will say. You had Harris up by 4 points, and then you shifted to Trump up by 1 point. What is different in your approach that other firms were not able to match?
I think other firms are still calling people, and I think people don't answer the phone anymore. I think there's only a small percentage of people that it's the same people answering the phone. So we do a multi-mode poll. So we do a text to web, and we do an email.
Okay.
And we send to thousands of people in order to get a 700 or 800 person to complete it.
I see. And as we move forward, I'm sure, well, I guess we hear it all the time in politics, like the firms will figure it out. But do you think 2026 is the year that this industry might turn things around?
A lot of polls were accurate within the margin of errors where you want to be. Some polls had Harris winning by 5 points, 6 points, which just wasn't right. And they should have caught that. There was a poll in Iowa that came out that had 6 or 7 points. So, you knew that something was wrong there. So, sometimes polls are wrong. But I think overall the polls were better this time in the last cycle, to be honest.
Okay, so would you say but there's still room for improvement. So do you think we're still on that good trajectory forward? Maybe not to get perfect results, but close enough.
I'm not sure because you have a lot less media companies that are funding, and you just it's really hard to reach people. So it costs a lot more to conduct these polls. So if you don't have media companies, like 2016, we had 2 media companies funding us. This time we did not. So and the costs have tripled. So it's just much harder to release public polls. And then you have companies that are slanted, where it's not bipartisan, but they're putting it on a partisan lens to skew the averages and all that. So I don't know. I think the polling industry has got some problems for sure.
I won't disagree with you there. Now, in addition to polling, you also do specialize in political consulting and strategy. So could you walk us a bit through what that looks like, your data-driven approach, as it says on your website?
So we have a data-driven approach, and we give advice and strategy to um, to clients, from their filing to how to fundraise, and then most importantly, they get out the vote, getting their message out online, mail, television, video, texting, door to door, anything you can imagine, billboards, all the different advertising mediums. We just can help them with everything, or just a la carte. They might come to us and just want mail. So that's fine. It depends, on the client, where they are in the cycle.
Fair enough. And I'm curious to know, with all these different modes of getting a candidate's name out there, what do you think is the best way for a candidate to get their name out there? Is it still the tried and tested like TV? Is it the mailers? Is it social media? What have you seen?
It depends on the race. If a guy's running for county commissioner, it's just hard on television because he's going to send it to so many people that aren't going to vote for him. So you got to do much more targeted online, and I think mail still works, but it's very, very expensive. The post office keeps raising prices, and online video is very, very effective, targeted towards likely voters, and a likely voter is someone who voted last time, and you target those people. Plus, who do you
And
think? Who?
yeah, and do you work nationwide, or are you
Yeah,
more
nationwide
situated?
and in Canada.
Okay. And swing states and like all of that fun stuff too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any preference in the types of races you like to work on?
I like this. I like local races. They're really get entrenched, and you meet some really interesting people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. I mean, I'll always say it. I love having on local candidates on my show too. I think it's always more interesting, I guess, to get a little on the ground feel. But let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about the news and the headlines if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Um, so we know Donald Trump's been in office. We've been covering him here on the show and the work his administration is doing. And I'm sure you'll agree, there's like so much that comes out of this White House. Like it's hard to cover one story for more than a day. Um, I want to get your thoughts on this strategy that they are using because I think it's still a strategy from his team. But what do you think the rationale is behind all that they've been doing, like throwing all these stories at us here in the press?
Strategy. They've been preparing for this for years.
Hmm.
This is a completely different administration, completely different group of people, a different experience, different loyalties. Um, and you can even look at a guy like Bob Mueller. You couldn't even imagine something like that happening right now. It just it wouldn't be. He's that much stronger. He's about 10 points. He's about 10 points higher. And the opposition right now is in shambles. But they'll come back. That's the way politics works. It's a pendulum. It always swings. When one side, Obama had 60 votes in the Senate at one point, and then the pendulum swung. Republicans took over, and so that's why Trump sees he's got 2 full years to really make a difference on what he wants to do in his agenda. And then he's lame duck. Actually, he can't run again. So plus he could lose the House. So he's got those two things to deal with.
A lot of moving parts. But I will say this election, it was a blow for Democrats. I don't think they really maybe they thought they were going to lose some of them, but I don't know if they expected it to be as massive as we might have seen. Do you think Democrats are going to be able to pick up the pieces by 2026, or do you think, unless, I mean, maybe if things go wrong on the other side as well, but do you think Democrats are going to be able to pick things up to be
Yeah,
competitive, or might it take some time?
yeah, of course. I think you're already seeing it. You saw little rallies in about 20 states.
Yeah.
You're seeing them use Elon Musk as a foil, and I think Trump wants that. But I think you'll see a movement pick up. It'll probably be around billionaires and taking over the government and all those things, like a Democratic Tea Party. and you'll see that movement. The movement was much stronger in 2016. I mean, you had a million people in the street with the, pink pussy hats and all that. You don't see that this time, but I think they're still working on it. I think, when you see immigration raids and you see that kind of that stuff on video, and you see some of the policies go wrong, and then you can blame it on, well, you cut this office or you cut these people, and then you blame it on the current administration because if you break it, you own it. And I think that's where you'll see the opposition start. And Democrats have a good bench of people that could run for president next time. So I think that, yeah, of course they'll come back and the pendulum will swing.
Do you think Kamala Harris, if she ran, she would be able to do well in 2028?
So I think she's polling about 30% right now, and that's just because of name recognition.
Yeah.
Everyone knows everyone knows who she is. But I don't think that she could. I think she could run for governor of California, and I think she could be there for 8 years and come back in 6, 7, 8 years. But I think she's got to take off. I think they got to take off for a term and give it to somebody else and see what.
But no Harris in 28, you think?
Well,
Or at least no successful Harris.
She had more money, and there was a 5 point swing from her and Biden. Biden won by 3 or 4, and she lost by 1. I don't know what her argument would be to run again.
That's true. And okay, so we'll I guess this is a 2028 question. A lot of the people that Trump's been picking to his cabinet are interesting figures, I will say. What do you think about the people he's been picking, and like what's the strategy behind it? I mean, if you ask me, I think he's trying to set up a 2028 primary for the Republican Party, just like picking out the people he likes. But what do you think of the people he's picking?
Listen, I was just surprised that he got everybody approved, from Gabbard to Kennedy. I thought there was a 50-50 shot, and it shows his strength right now. He was able to hold the Senate, get 50 votes in the Senate. I mean, right now, J.D. Vance is the vice president, so he's probably a little bit most likely to be the nominee. But then you got guys like Ron DeSantis, and you got Ted Cruz, and you got Marco Rubio. So you just don't know on the Republican side. Democratic side, you get guys like Gavin Newsom or Wes Moore. There's just so many people out there right now, young people out there right now, that Whitmore from Michigan that can run and really. It'll be interesting.
It's gonna be an exciting time.
There's no incumbent president running, so.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be like 2016 when we had that full 17-person Republican stage. I mean, Democrats didn't have that, but we saw it in 2020, though. I'll give a quick shout out to my mini series, Meet the Trump Administration, which comes out every Tuesday. We're talking about a lot of the people that Mr. Kaplan and I were just discussing. But I want to move over to data again. Look a little closer to now, which is the 2026 midterms. I like to think that pollsters like yourself have a pulse on the American electorate. What do you think are going to be the biggest issues in American politics, or at least for the near future? What do you think is something the Trump White House is going to think about every day?
I think prices of food and real estate and all of that. And the president doesn't really have much control over that. So I think that's going to be something that he's fighting with for sure.
And do you think if prices go on the trajectory that some in the media have been saying, which is that they may go up again as a result of tariffs and whatnot, do you think the American people are going to be as forgiving to this administration in 26, or might we see the same backlash that Democrats got?
Historically, you always have backlash in a midterm. Biden was able to avoid that, but historically you always have backlash. I mean, Clinton and Obama and Bush, well, actually Bush did very well because of 9/11, but Clinton and Obama got wiped out and Trump got really wiped out in his midterms. So I expect the Democrats to win the House back and win the Senate back, just historically, unless there's a major event.
Well, with that, Mr. Kaplan, I'm afraid we are almost out of time. But before I do let you go, are there any parting thoughts you'd like to share with my audience?
Yeah, listen, it's a long cycle. We're a couple of weeks into this, and the pendulum always swings one way or the other, and we'll see. These guys are playing chess.
Well, Doug Kaplan, President of Kaplan Strategies, thank you so much for joining us here on the Ishana Show. We hope to have you back on soon.
Thank you.